Art and nature were always inseparably part of Athos Menaboni. His father was a ship's chandler working out of the Italian seaport of Livorno, where Menaboni was born in 1895, the second of 5 children. The family was indulgent of their children, providing them with a variety of pets, including an aviary of over 50 birds. At the same time, his parents encouraged their son's artistic abilities by arranging private painting lessons for him when he was just 9. His youth was filled with hunting, fishing, music, and art, all things he continued to cherish into adulthood. As a young man, Menaboni studied at the Royal Academy in Florence, but his time there was interrupted by the advent of World War I. Athos decided to join the Italian army. He bravely served his country as an aviator, earning commendations and igniting his lifelong passion for airplanes. The harsh realities of war, however, took their toll on the young artist. Needing a change of scenery after the war, Menaboni worked on a freighter. His travels took him to America, and after 2 years in New York City, he accepted the job as the art director for the Davis Island project in Tampa, Florida. This real estate endeavor built luxury homes on waterfront property that had been reclaimed from the bay. We know that he took time during his stay in Florida to reacquaint himself with his childhood love for the out-of-doors. Even after his work for D.P. Davis ended, the artist returned to Florida to enjoy the exotic natural habitat. When the Florida real estate boom faded in the late 1920s, Menaboni scrambled to find other work. He landed a commission to paint a mural in Atlanta, where he met Sara, a young woman from Rome, Georgia, who would become his lifelong collaborator and wife. They married in 1928 and honeymooned in Italy, where he continued to paint. Their commitment and devotion to one another lasted for more than 60 years.
When he was here for several years, mother always was worried because, you know, in Italy, looking at the American women, so emancipated, driving, working in the office, while in Italy we still have to go out with a chaperone, so mother always say, my God, don't make Athos marry an American girl, don't make him marry an American girl. And here come one day a letter and say, Mother, I'm in love, I'm going to marry a girl from Rome. And she said, thank God, you listen to me. And my brother Bruno said, my mother is Rome, America. And mother said, Rome, America, but still Rome.
Menaboni's skills as a muralist eventually brought him to the attention of Atlanta architect Philip Trammell Schutze. Schutze saw in the young artist creativity, talent, and a willingness to work with clientele to successfully provide the necessary finishing touches for his architectural designs. Menaboni and Schutze enjoyed a most successful association, as exemplified in the breakfast room murals and niches Menaboni painted in 1930 in Atlanta's Goodrum House, now the Southern Center for International Studies. In keeping with Schutze's Chinese Chippendale motif of the central stairwell, Menaboni created humorous caricatures of oriental figures surrounded by flora and fauna on 4 18-karat gold leaf painted niches. It is in the O.J. curved vaulted ceiling that we see what would become the characteristic style of the artist. Here he created the convincing illusion of an open bamboo trellis, complete with vines and beautiful birds. The ceiling mural is a wonderful early example of Menaboni as naturalist. In 1937, Schutze provided Menaboni with a truly grand commission. The project was to modernize a house on Sapelo Island off the Georgia coast that had recently been purchased by tobacco tycoon R.J. Reynolds. Reynolds must have clearly expressed his desire that this new home was to be a place for fun and relaxation, since the themes of Menaboni's murals reveal a sense of whimsy and pleasure in being on this mysterious and wondrous island. The largest mural, featured in the upstairs ballroom, originally extended over all 4 walls. This once formal space, which opened onto rooftop terraces, was transformed into a circus tent, including trapeze chandeliers and furnishings in the shape of barbells and drums. wild and exotic circus animals and the circus ringmaster decorate the walls in most charming detail. In the solarium that surrounded the pool, Menaboni created a tropical garden with various plants, birds, and even an occasional monkey and winking owl to delight the most reticent guests. Finally, in the lower-level gaming room, Reynolds chose the theme of pirates, and Menaboni produced an enchanting group of buccaneers gathered on a beach, very reminiscent of Sapelo Island. Some of the murals have suffered over time, and parts have been lost forever. But the staff at the Reynolds Mansion are working hard to preserve what remains of these striking Menaboni murals. When not at work on the murals, we know that the natural beauty of Sapelo Island made a lasting impression on the artist, who resided there for many months. He and Sara returned to the island to visit long after the commission had been completed. It would not be the first time that Menaboni was able to weave his work and his love of nature together. Over the next few decades, Menaboni's versatility as an artist was not limited to just wall murals. In 1939, Schutze was asked to design what became known as the Mirador Room at Atlanta's Capitol City Club. The walls of the stylish new dining space featured mirrors that Menaboni decorated in reverse painting with his signature birds and foliage. This entailed that he conceive of the painting and create it working from the foreground to the background, which is the opposite way most visual artists produced.
He greatly admired his talent. I think that Mr. Woodruff was almost totally responsible for getting him the job at the Mirador Room at the Capitol City Club, because they apparently that was before my time down here. Apparently there was some question about the cost and how we going to pay for it. And this was when the club was being renovated. And in his usual way, Mr. Woodruff said, well, we'll worry about that down the road. Let's get this work done now.
In 1954, as part of a fundraising campaign for the Cerebral Palsy School Clinic of Atlanta, Menaboni provided 8 bird portraits that were featured on what became a very popular set of dinner plates. Later, in 1958, he completed a mosaic mural composed of eggshells for the CNS Branch Bank in Decatur, Georgia, on the theme of good stewardship of the earth. His wide range of expression included depictions of industrial and agricultural workers, as well as images of angels and saints. Yet, like St. Francis himself, Menaboni always returned to the natural world for true artistic and spiritual inspiration. Menaboni gained his greatest audience with his stunning bird portraits. It is in these paintings that his innate sensitivity and acute ability to observe nature is most evident. Not only were these works exhibited at the American Museum of Natural History, the Kennedy Galleries, and the National Audubon Society in New York, but he also was given shows in Boston, St. Louis, Santa Barbara, and his adopted hometown of Atlanta. It was during these busy years of the 1950s that Menaboni's relationship with Callaway Gardens was firmly established, with a successful exhibition of his work, organized by Virginia Hand Callaway. The Callaways became good friends of the artist and commissioned works for both the gardens and their home at Blue Springs. Menaboni's artwork also found its place in print. His bird images were featured in the World Book Encyclopedia and on the covers of magazines such as Sports Illustrated, Sports of Field, and Progressive Farmer. The naturalist artist had become so popular and well appreciated that he even was approached by the most unlikely of companies to illustrate their brochures. But perhaps his most memorable body of bird paintings was produced between 1941 and 1984 for Robert W. Woodruff of Coca-Cola fame. It was in that first year that the Woodruffs commissioned a painting of mourning doves for the living room at Ishiway, their hunting plantation in southwestern Georgia. They were so pleased with the results that they decided to reproduce it as their Christmas card for that year. The next year, a second commission followed for a quail covey in flight. Except for the 2 or 3 paintings that were inspired by birds from their ranch out west, the next 4 decades of Woodruff Christmas cards featured Menaboni's paintings of the birds of Ishiway Plantation. The house at Ishiway still features some of Woodruff's cherished Menaboni paintings, and even a few of the Christmas cards decorate the lampshades. The legacy of the wildlife of Ishiway, now the Joseph W. Jones Ecological Research Center, is in some ways shared between this artist and his most ardent patron. In an article written in the early 1960s, Mr. Woodruff credited his wife for having the good sense to hire Athos Menaboni, whose work was featured in the 1959 Coca-Cola calendar, and also selected to decorate the bulkhead of the Coca-Cola Company plane.
Sara Menaboni ran the show. Athos did the painting, Sara did all the business, and Athos didn't want to deal with that at all. He would give it to you if he thought you liked it. Sara would make you pay. But she helped out a lot. He would say, I need a piece of magnolia for this bird to sit on, and she would get out in her car and go all over town searching for the best example of what he needed, and she would bring it back so he could use that in his paintings.
Behind all of the success was the remarkable partnership between Sara and Athos Menaboni. This union was perhaps nowhere more apparent than in the way they chose to live their lives. When their finances made it possible, they purchased property and asked their good friend, architect Richard Eck, to plan their first house. Eck's design was a masterful example of style and efficiency and was featured in the July 1946 issue of American Home.
Of course, going to visit Athos was like going to the zoo. There were always all manner of birds or animals. Sara and Athos had these Italian greyhounds, and they were very skittish and very nervous, and they didn't enjoy company. You would walk in, and there was all the barking of the greyhounds, which would upset the birds in the aviary. And he had an aviary in the house with running water and frogs, and the birds would then start making a racket, and it became quite a din in a very short order.
Well, my first recollection of the Menabonis was when Sara Menaboni would come to my third grade class, and I will not say the year that was, but she would come and give us talks about birds. My third grade teacher, Miss Luby McLucas, was a close friend of Miss Menaboni's, and we had a cage in the room, and people were encouraged to bring any injured bird or sick birds we might run across, and then Sara Menaboni would come and pick the bird up and take it back to their bird sanctuary and revive the bird or do whatever was necessary, and then she would come back and give us a follow-up.
The Menabonis called their new residence Villa Ombrosa, or Shady Valley, and the property served not only as home and studio, but also as an animal hospital and sanctuary, where the Menabonis and their friends found peace and tranquility just minutes away from urban Atlanta. Streams were dammed to attract waterfowl, plantings chosen to attract birds, and the setting served not only to inspire, but also to enable the artist to work at what had become a most prolific and demanding art career. The property was expanded to provide a larger studio and an aviary after World War II. It was also at this time that the couple expanded their immediate family to include Menaboni's mother and two sisters, who he insisted immigrate here following his father's death during the war. A patriotic and proud American, Menaboni's ties to his homeland were always strong. In 1963, a painting was donated to the city of his birth, Livorno, Italy. Menaboni painted the American eagle as a commission, though he never knew whom his patron was, until it was revealed that the painting was to be presented as a gift to Livorno from his friends in Atlanta, Georgia. It was a most fitting tribute to this wonderful artist. Those who knew Athos Menaboni speak of him with great admiration and love for both the man and his work. He touched the heart of everyone he met. Over his very long career of more than 70 years, Menaboni received numerous accolades and awards. In 1983, he was presented the Georgia's Governor Award in the Arts. That same year, he was honored indirectly when Patricia Kirby took first place in the Georgia State Poetry Contest with a poem for Athos Menaboni. In the poem, entitled Pontifex, the artist as bridge builder Kirby reflects that art and nature coalesce in this artist's work in such a way as to provide us with an awakening of the spiritual. The last stanza of her poem reads, "To capture equally the mystic saint, whose self-fragmented love helped make man whole, and his birds in winged prayer-like flight uplifts art's purpose far beyond restraint, as in this gentle, gifted soul, both God and nature graciously unite." We are indebted to Athos Menaboni for showing us our world anew with every brushstroke.